Hi, I'd like to acknowledge the Anawan traditional owners whose land I'm speaking on and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Franklin River blockade is worth examining for numerous reasons. For its impact on the 1983 Australian federal election, on constitutional law, climate change mitigation, environmental activism and non-violence praxis. What I focus on today, however, in this time of global anti-racism protests, such as by the Black Lives Matter movement, is the role that Aboriginal people played in the campaign. And the fact that ancient cave art was pivotal to the campaign's success. I will also discuss the role of contemporary art forms in the campaign, contributing to the growth and international profile of the campaign and its non-violent nature. And I'll conclude by mentioning some of the impacts of the campaign. The blockade involved non-violent direct action and civil disobedience on a scale never previously experienced in Australia, and rarely since. Situated in the remote southwest of Tasmania, it aimed to conserve a wild river regarded as one of the world's best whitewater rafting destinations, and to save from being dammed almost 800,000 hectares of rainforest. It began with a small group of bushwalkers and rafters led by Dr. Bob Brown, at a time when most people thought the dam was a foregone conclusion. The newly formed Tasmanian Wilderness Society, or TWIS, was up against virtually the entire Tasmanian establishment, the state government, the state's private media, and the Hydroelectric Commission, a powerful entity with close links to the major parties and unions. TWIS, however, had learned from the drowning of Lake Pedder, regarded as an international tragedy, that the polite, old-school tide lobbying done by established groups like the Australian Conservation Foundation would not be enough. TWIS was also inspired by the recent success of the alternative communities of northern New South Wales in saving significant stands of Terania Creek rainforest. In what Vanessa Bible describes as a world first for environmentalism, they used radical new tactics such as obstructing bulldozers, blocking roads with cars, and climbing and occupying trees. TWIS was impressed, but in a nervous sort of way, because the Terania actions were very anarchic and involved hairy anti-establishment hippies. A number of Terania activists, such as Lisa Yates leading the march here, travelled to Tasmania and were crucial to the success of the upriver blockade in the forests, although there were tensions between the two groups. There were also tensions caused by ignorance and unconscious racism towards the Aboriginal traditional owners of the region, who are widely but incorrectly thought to have died out with the death of Aboriginal woman Truganini in 1876. Although there was some evidence of support for Aboriginal issues, there was little consultation by TWIS with Tasmanian Aboriginal people, who had their own campaign and a small but charismatic presence. They felt that the broader Green movement still did not understand and that they were pinning us onto them, but we didn't like to be trivialised, said Jim Everett. Michael Mansell, who along with Ros Langford was arrested during the campaign, complains that no Aboriginal sovereignty was acknowledged nor approval sought for the Franklin campaign, and that TWIS's 1984 submission for a national park mentioned Aboriginal people only with a tokenistic plan for managing sites, regarded in the past tense as having archaeological significance, but no present-day spiritual importance for living Tasmanian Aboriginal people. Some resented what they regarded as the appropriation of Aboriginal culture and sites by archaeologists to advance their own careers. Many Aboriginal people found and continue to find the term wilderness offensive because its implications of terra nullius, the idea underlying the British occupation, that Australia was unoccupied in 1788, ignored the long-term Aboriginal occupation of the Franklin area. Mansell felt that TWIS's then categorisation of wilderness as primitive country remote from the ambit of civilization denigrated that Aboriginal occupation, situating Aboriginal people as primitive and white people as civilised, when in fact pre-colonisation Aboriginal people were both modern and technological, and modified and maintained ecosystems now considered natural. This sent clear evidence of TWIS perpetuating neo-colonialist attitudes and prioritising the environment ahead of social justice issues. As a result of these criticisms, TWIS would later modify this definition and accord greater recognition to Aboriginal people. At the time, there was also a cooperation which had positive aspects, advancing both environmentalist and Aboriginal causes. Activist Renan Fraser said that there was a divide there, as well as a lot of mutual understanding of what we were fighting for. Jim Everett said that from being ignored and demonised on the fringes of society, support from the Green Movement and others broke the ice, put us right under the noses of white Tasmania, and they just weren't able to argue out of that one. The rediscovery of Kutakina caves by archaeologists would later form a crucial part of the High Court case that ultimately decided the fate of the region. They contained ancient cave paintings of comparable significance to those of southwest France and Spain, and evidence that 20,000 years ago, Aboriginals were the world's southernmost people. With the formation of Bass Strait at the end of the last ice age, they became the most isolated people on Earth, spending 500 generations without encountering another human group. The global significance of Kutakina Cave aided the campaign's internationalisation and the Franklin's listing as World Heritage, which recognised the area's natural and cultural values. And the ultimate success of the campaign relied on the High Court decision in the Tasmanian dam case, which itself rested on the fact that the Commonwealth was a party to a treaty which recognised and preserved Aboriginal cultural heritage. Thus, the Franklin Wilderness was simultaneously and paradoxically considered both untainted by humans and containing globally significant human artefacts created by a people erroneously thought to be extinct. Activist Alice Hungerford believes that Kutakina was perhaps the major factor in the saving of the river. A 2016 exhibition at the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery similarly argued that the Franklin protests succeeded for two reasons: the discovery of evidence of 20,000 years of Aboriginal occupation and the overwhelming public response to Peter Dombrovskis' photograph Rock Island Bend, which influenced the outcome of the 1983 federal elections. While this oversimplifies the campaign, which was complex, many-faceted, strategic, comprehensive, wide-ranging and popular, it does raise another important issue: the major role of the arts, both ancient Aboriginal and contemporary, in the campaign. As Sorensen and Windhagen argue, for non-violent movements working for social change, there is no possibility of ignoring culture. The Rock Island Bend photo was reproduced more than 1 million times and was used by TWIS in the first ever full-colour advertisements in The Age and Sydney Morning Herald to urge people not to vote for a party that would allow it to be destroyed. It may have been worth thousands of votes. Other visual arts included banners, filmmaking, and cartoons. Banners helped to impart messages and attract media attention. And the professionalism introduced by artists and performers such as Benny Zabels was a new element of non-violent action. Benny introduced banners to say what you want on sites and at direct actions. It had not really been part of our action culture previously. The visuals are the things that people remember. It's what got it on the television, said Laurie Fraser. In the meantime, paintings, such as this one by Harold Kanga Thornton, infiltrated the high art institutions, while cartoons garnered prominent, widespread, and often sympathetic coverage of the issue. Film was also important. As Bob Brown argued, while you can get hundreds of people to an area if you've got time in a campaign, you can get that same area to millions of people through film. Film of beautiful places allows those places to speak for themselves, and it is a speech which the exploiters cannot match. Music inspired action, empowered people and reduced fear, such as music here on the Strawn dock transforming a scene of pandemonium and trepidation into one imbued with a sense of heroism, of being on the verge of making history. Music created solidarity and fortified activists as they awaited arrest or were transported to prison. It was a powerful mood controller. It empowered people, gave us a bit of extra hope. It attracted attention and helped us to deal with our emotions. Whether it was to express the horror or to calm things down or to razz things up, there was the whole gamut of emotions. In this story, police joined in some music that activists had begun and danced with them. And this was one of the reasons why many of the police began to come over to the side of the conservationists and slip them information. Music also calmed crowds and angry opponents, preventing violence and bad publicity, such as in this incident. The rock band Goanna wrote a song, Let the Franklin Flow, helping to spread the word and grow the movement. The campaign became a national and then an international one, involving celebrity scientists such as David Bellamy, and even a decoy David Bellamy. And then a federal political campaign helped to elect the Australian Labor Party to power, where it remained for 13 years. Despite some environmentally damaging policies, it did institute a Ministry of the Environment and some beneficial policies, and it stopped the dam and defeated a High Court challenge by the Tasmanian government, thereby creating a significant legal precedent. Although hydroelectricity has been characterised as clean and green, if the dam had eventuated, a significant carbon sink would have been lost, while the rotting vegetation would have emitted large amounts of greenhouse gases. Despite the threats of economic collapse and unemployment if the dam didn't proceed, the area is now a booming tourist destination. The success of the Franklin also inspired a great deal of further activism both in Australia and overseas. TWIS went national and has continued to be effective. Its No Dam symbol, created by a graphic designer and associated with size and success of protests, has been repeatedly used. And is now a firm part of Australian protest culture. To sum up, the Franklin River Campaign was a major environmental campaign with long-term consequences. The contributions to the campaign of Aboriginal people and their culture, and the role of the arts, have both been under-recognised, but were highly significant in the successful campaign. Thank you.